All right, it is the top of the hour. I want to welcome everyone to Digital Voices. This is our first ever Digital Voices podcast that's live streamed. We'll also be recording this as well, but we thought it'd be fun to do a live stream so you can interact with our very special Father's Day episode guest, Herbert Marx. Herb, welcome to Digital Voices.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
So this is going to be a lot of fun for many different reasons, and you can interact with us. So my dad is, and we'll get into it, is a Holocaust, not just survivor, as my mom was as well, but an escapee of a concentration camp. If you ever had any questions for someone like that, you can put them in the chat function on LinkedIn and we'll answer them. So you can put in comments, you can ask questions, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. Typically, Digital Voices is 30-minute format. We'll see if we extend a little longer, we may, but typically 30 minutes. So we're going to start off like we always do. And that is, again, introduce our guest. It's actually my dad. So I love my dad. Happy Father's Day.
No, thanks a lot.
And who's your favorite kid?
My favorite kid is Edward Marx.
I'm actually the youngest of seven. I have awesome brothers and sisters. They're all pretty cool and we're all equal, of course, but it's just kind of fun to tease that way. So I want to talk about Father's Day on this particular episode because about 5 years ago, I came and visited you in Colorado and it was an impromptu visit. And I just put something out on LinkedIn. I said, go see Dad, and had a picture of you and I, and got 2.5 million impressions. And it really struck a nerve. And I realized how important it is for that relationship that's often strained in many families. So that's why I really wanted to do this. Dad, before we get going too far, I ask the same questions of all of our guests. What are your favorite songs? What songs do you like to listen to?
I like to listen to songs from musicals, and my favorite song is actually All I Ask of You from Phantom of the Opera.
And you sing that to your...
I sing this to my girlfriend. As you know, I am a 91-year-old teenager.
It's true. My dad acts like a teenager, and sadly, you were married for 50 years to my mom, and unfortunately, she passed away. But ever since then, we've had as your children had to treat you like a teenager because we had to make sure you didn't do anything too bad like we might have done when we were kids. Right. But yeah, what about words that you live by or a quote? Are there some things that how you live your life?
I try to live my life by being honest, staying out of trouble, not lying to people, and answer all questions about my life truthfully and not being ashamed of it.
Yeah, because that's interesting, and that'll kind of lead into your story because we took you back to Germany, kind of like on a tour to meet with all your friends that we had left Germany in 1970, early 70s, mid 70s, and a couple of my sisters and I decided to take you back and to visit with all your friends because everyone's getting older and you never know when you'll see them again. And it was at that time, actually, that for the first time, you shared with some of them your Jewish background right. And being an escapee because of the reasons that you cited. So let's start at the beginning, Dad. When you were first born, tell us about your life. Like you were born and then what happened?
When I was 6 years old, I was put in a concentration camp in southern France. And from this concentration camp, people helped me escape. And the German soldiers took me to a French orphanage in Toulouse, France. From Toulouse, they had to take me away because they found out that I was Jewish. So they took me to the French resistance, and the French resistance took me over the mountains into Switzerland. And in Switzerland, they put me again into a Catholic orphanage until they found out that I was German, Jewish. And then they sent me to another orphanage, a Jewish orphanage in Belleville, Switzerland. And it is from there that I came to the United States. When I came to the United States, I lived in New Jersey for about 9 years. I lived with an uncle and aunt, very Orthodox Jewish. And then I got drafted into the United States Army as a German. And they sent me back to Germany to occupy my own country. It was in Germany that they realized that I knew French and German and English, and they needed an interpreter. So they told me to come to the American consulate in Munich. And all they did was they gave me a piece of paper, said, sign here. And then they said, congratulations, you are now an American citizen. It was also over there that I met a German lady who I later married. She gave me 7 children. Ed over here happens to be the youngest one. And the youngest one is normally the best, as you know. What can I say? And then after I enlisted in the Army for 20 years. And then I settled in Colorado, and I worked for 20 years at the Air Force Academy in Colorado. And then I was also very involved in the sport of soccer. I officiated soccer. And then I decided that I was a bachelor. I decided that I was looking for romance. And then I saw on a dating site that there was a Jewish lady in Arizona who was Jewish and who put in her that she would like to have a husband back. So I figured I'm going to chase her because she must come from a good marriage. But she didn't want to come up to Colorado. It was too high and too cold. So I moved out to Arizona, and this has been the best move that I made in my adult life.
Yeah, since you got married to mom.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to unpack there. So if you have any questions, feel free to put in comments and LinkedIn feed, and we will try to address some of those if you have any questions. So Dad, you were about 6 years old. They said, hey, you got to go on a train, right? You thought you loved trains as a little kid. So you got put on a train. What was that experience like?
Being on the train was really bad because we were in a cattle truck and we were crowded. There was no fresh air and the place stunk because there were no toilets and people trampled over people who were sick. It was awful.
Yeah, and so I've retraced those steps since then. I've gone to the camp. I've seen the railroad there, and then from there, so that's where you escaped, and you were hidden away for actually 3 years in that particular like a convent, and so I've gone back and to find that convent, but then everyone else was ultimately taken to Auschwitz and never to be seen again, except for we actually do have one. My godmother actually, yes. After a couple of years,
right.
They released her. So, and that's another story for another time. And so, yeah, so you took this experience. What did you learn from that experience, Dad? Like being a Holocaust escapee and survivor, how's that affected you as a person?
Well, it affected me because I never had a real family life because they took away my family basically. And however, I was never mistreated, but I never could call anybody mom or dad. And that hurt later on when I came to the United States, where I lived in New Jersey, everybody has a mom and a father, what have you, and I didn't have that. So so that's what the Holocaust did to me. They basically took away my family life.
So Dad, what would you say to people today about Father's Day? Like for those that have dads that are still around.
Yeah. The Father's Day is very important, and it doesn't get as much importance as Mother's Day. So I would like to recommend that we do away with Father's Day and Mother's Day and change the name to Parents' Day and move the Father's Day away from June because Mother's Day gets so much more importance because school is still on in most states. So move the Parents' Day or Father's Day maybe into May as well, or maybe one of the days in April. So we get equal time. But Father's Day is also important. I live in a senior housing, and a lot of the residents over there are spending Father's Day this Sunday, and the children have no time to visit them. It is very important that the children acknowledge the presence of Dad. I enjoy when my son calls me. I'm also very lucky that he came to visit me. But apparently, a lot of people, they put the old folks' father into senior living or assisted living, and we are well taken care of over there. However, we lack the companionship of a father, if only once a month.
Yeah. Yeah. So the message is, and I know it's complicated because some people may not have a good relationship with their dad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons. So, but to the extent you can, go see your dad, go call your dad. Of course, we love moms as well, but this is Father's Day. Go see your dad, call your dad. I think that's a message here. And speaking of Father's Day, before we move on to another topic like virtual care, Dad, I wanted to present you with a gift, my Father's Day gift to you. So this is a new book that I wrote, came out May 30th. I wrote with many other people, but I was one of the editors. It's called Voice of Innovation for AI. So in it, I have your name. So it's dedicated to you. And then also our family that all were, who didn't make it out of Auschwitz. And so it's written for you. So it says, I dedicate this book to my dad, Herbert Marx, and then it goes on.
Thank you very much. I'm honored.
Yeah, so this is about you, Dad, and all the royalties from the sale of this book go to Mayo Clinic to cure cancer because of Mom. right? So when my mom died of ovarian cancer almost 15 years ago. Um, so since then, I've donated all the royalties to all the books to cure cancer. Finally, have a foundation set up there with Chris Ross, and so that's where all the money goes to try to find cures for cancer. So that's great. Yeah. So far, Dad, we talked about Father's Day, the importance of Father's Day. Go reach out to your dads to the extent that you still have them, or someone who is like your dad. For those who don't maybe have a dad left or not a good role model of a dad, there might be someone else in your life that you could reach out to and contact. And then you shared your story about the Holocaust and escaping from the Holocaust. One question before we move to virtual care that some people had was, how did you escape? You mentioned the soldiers took you, but what was the role, speaking of mothers and Mother's Day, what was the role of your mom?
My mom was an inmate at the camp, and she perhaps was overly friendly with the German soldiers. The German soldiers then put me on the back of a 2.5-ton truck and covered me with tarpaulin and took me out of the concentration camp, which is about 50 miles south of Toulouse, France, and took me to a Catholic orphanage in Toulouse.
Yeah.
And thereby, she eventually she saved my life.
So one of the questions that someone in the audience has is, how do you not hate, right? Because you had this horrible experience. You lose all your family. It's all stripped away and people did evil things, but you don't have hate in your heart.
I cannot hate the German people for what happened during the Holocaust, because most of the German people did actually not know what was going on. Back then, they did not have all the electronic devices available that we have today, where today you can almost do something and somebody else is going to take a picture of it or what have you. So the Germans got away with that because there was no electronic devices,
Yeah.
unlike today.
No Instagram or TikTok or social media to help sort of spread the word about the evil that was taking place. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So if you have other questions, please drop them. We're going to move on in topics, but you can ask a question about any topic, even if we've covered it already, and we'll come back to it. Let's talk about virtual care. You've been a guest on one of our programs before, Dad, during COVID, and you used a lot of virtual care. Have you gone back to virtual care, or how do you get your care today?
No, I like to visit the doctor's office. I never cared for that telephone
Telemedicine?
when the doctor asks you, how are you doing? They expect you to say, I'm doing fine. So, but then again, when I visit the doctor and they ask me, how are you doing? I tell them today, if I was fine, I wouldn't be here. So, and then instead of saying that I'm good or what I feel bad, I tell them today, and I really do this, I tell them I'm in love.
Love does cure. I think love does help the healing process. That's for sure. So everyone needs someone to love. And again, encourage people to reach out to their dads, to their families, and just make amends or whatever, or just say hello, whatever needs to be done. But what about the convenience of virtual care though? Wasn't it easier just to stay in your home and have telemedicine than get in a car and then?
It's a lot easier when the doctor calls you. And especially when you don't have transportation available, like I do not have at the present time, it becomes more difficult. However, I still like the personal touch when you go to a doctor's office. And I had the opportunity to have doctors come to my apartment. But somehow I thought the machines they brought to take X-rays or ultrasounds, they look like they were old-fashioned as compared to what you see in a modern office or what have you. So I prefer to go to a doctor. And since I live in a senior housing, I got plenty of time. So I'm not limited to only be away for a couple hours to go back to work. I don't have to go back to work.
In addition to love, the other thing though that helps keep you healthy in 91, being fully independent, is you still work out.
I still go at the senior place where I go to aerobics, water aerobics, and we have exercises like I go to Tai Chi and exercises to help to prevent from falling or what have you. A lot of the exercises are done on chairs. However, the exercise on chairs is better than not doing any exercise at all.
Yeah.
Because the problem when you get older is that you don't want to fall down. Because when you fell down, you normally break something, hip or joint or what have you.
Yeah.
So the thing is, don't fall down And by doing exercise, you are able to do that.
And Dad, you and my mom, you've had this long history of working out. You used to always get up like at 5 o'clock in the morning or something ridiculous.
My wife and I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and then go to a gym together. And then after gym, we would have breakfast somewhere. And then we had 2 cars. So I went to work and she went home. But by doing the exercise together, it's a little easier.
Yeah. So back to virtual care and patient experience. So don't name the places, don't name the hospitals, but we talk about this a lot. And you were sharing even yesterday, we would call it coordination of care, but you described a situation where you had an appointment at one location.
Right.
And then what happened next?
I had an appointment at one location and I was told I needed a blood test. The location had the blood test, but they said, I'm sorry, but we don't do these kinds of tests at this place. So I had to go to another location. At the other location, I ran into the same problems. They told me, oh, I'm sorry, but we cannot do this over here. You have to go to the main hospital. So I went to the main hospital. So I was gone about 6 hours just trying for a blood test that took 1 minute.
Yeah. And this is, again, coordination care. And this happens all the time. And sometimes we don't see it because we're so busy doing whatever our functions are in healthcare. But we don't get to hear the patient experience, and it's not very convenient, especially if you're an elderly patient and mobility is a little bit of an issue. You could be spending a whole day just to get a routine exam with your labs, and there's definitely a better way.
And of course, when you go to different locations, strangely enough, they don't have all the information about you. And it's very difficult because you have to repeat everything. You give the medical facilities your information because you normally get a letter about what was done with you during this visit, and you give it to them, and you hope that they make a copy of them and put it on your records. And I found out the other day that is not the case.
Yeah, this is funny because this is all unrehearsed, and so my dad now is bringing up, the fact that we still struggle with interoperability. We call it interoperability, the exchange of information, and it's still such a huge problem despite all the money we've invested in technology and all that we talk about when it comes to patient experience. We still struggle in some of the fundamentals like that. Hey, I want to spend the last couple of minutes now talking about leadership. So, Dad, I think you mentioned it in the beginning briefly, but you were a soldier, a leader, an NCO for 20 plus years in the Army. You served in Vietnam, you served in combat. And tell us something about leadership that you learned.
Well, you have to show the people that you lead, you have to be a good example. And the example is not only professionally, but it's also personally. In other words, if you want people to follow you, to believe in you, you got to live a clean life and follow the directions and also be helpful and realize that some people need more help. Some subordinates need more help than other ones do. And if you take care of your men, that they will go all out and support you in whatever is required to do.
Yeah, that's good leadership fundamentals. Even back from the 60s and Vietnam era, it's the same today. So that's really well said. You also talked about officiating a little bit. So there's one kind of unique story. Everyone has their 15 minutes of fame, and yours would have been even bigger if social media was bigger back then, like we talked about earlier with horrific things that came out of Germany back in the 40s. But you had an encounter with the President of the United States. And you're the only person that ever did what you're about to share with the President of the United States. So tell us about that story.
In March of 1987, President George Bush came to Colorado Springs to give a speech. Because I did not know this, but I was ready to start a girls' soccer game at Cheyenne Mountain High School when all at once they started yelling, "Mr. Referee, don't start the game." So I saw 2 people in a black suit yell, "Referee, don't start." And right behind him was George Bush, dressed in a red warm-up pants and a white T-shirt. And the president comes onto the soccer field and lays down in the middle of the center circle and does warm-up exercises. So I figured, now what the heck is going on here? So after about 5 minutes, the president got up, he shook my hands, and said, "Good afternoon, Mr. Referee." I figured, well, I'm going to get you, baby. So I put my hand in my back pocket and I pulled out my red card and said, "And sir, This is for you. I gave him the red card. And I reported him to the Colorado High School Activities Association as being red carded from a soccer game.
Yeah, and so for those who don't know, red cards like you're ejected from the field, the game, and you're suspended. And so they did send a suspension letter to the White House. George Bush did respond, and he said, "I played varsity soccer at Yale, I think it was, for 4 years, and in high school, never ever got a yellow card, let alone a red card." And then I met President Bush Jr. a few years ago, and we reminisced about that story. And he said, "You know what? My dad probably deserved it." Yes. It was super funny. Hey, we had another question come through as we kind of head towards the end here. So if you do have any other questions, please drop them in the comment section. We'll try to get to them as we end. Someone said to have you tell your favorite Ed Marx story, like a story about me. Like, do you have a story about me? I guess that's the question.
Yeah, well, my son Ed was a typical teenager. He did a few things he shouldn't have done, but he paid the price for it.
I did.
But he's okay. He was never in jail or anything like this. I'm very proud of him. But I'm proud of all my children, actually.
Yeah.
And I think that his mom, who has passed away, and I would be very proud today of all what our children have accomplished.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. All of my brothers and sisters are super good humans, which is the most important part, and doing really good things in the world. And the legacy, how many grandchildren do you have now?
Oh, I got 18 grandchildren, and I have 17 great-grandchildren. So I got a big family.
Yeah. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full, I think is what it says in the Old Testament somewhere. So Dad, I'm going to give you the last word. Any parting thoughts, ideas you want to share with the world? This podcast, as of May, so we're recording June 13th, 2025. The last time we saw the stats in May, we're number 8 on Apple under tech. So huge audience, I think maybe about 10,000. Yeah. What's a parting thought? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, I am very concerned about the problem that with the attack that happened in Iran and Israel. I am very much concerned also with the Holocaust survivors. And I just recently, just a week ago, I was one of several Holocaust survivors invited to turn the first shovel of earth at the new Holocaust museum that they're building in Phoenix, Arizona. But I hope that we don't get into any wars. I meet a lot of veterans where I go, and war is awful. We need to find peace, lasting peace all over the world.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And we had one late breaking question come in, so we'll ask one more question and then we'll wrap up. What's something about concentration camps that you think people might not know about? Like any other insight?
In the concentration where I was in the camp, remember I was 6 years old. I saw people I heard getting shot and fall over. I saw blood coming out from people. I saw dogs jumping on people. But I didn't really know what it meant to die at the time. And I like to compare this with my children who played on the TV, on the computers, and with some games where they killed a whole bunch of people. At my age, I did not realize what was really happening.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because it's hard to process. Yeah. Yeah. And you wouldn't have had that technology back then to even play out scenarios like that. Like kids have been so desensitized.
And I realized that people don't get the right food all the time in the concentration camp. I went where the German soldiers were eating, and I went through the trash, and I found leftovers in the trash and brought that trash to my mom's living quarters. And they were hungry because all they got was bread made with water, not milk.
Yeah. Yeah. Dad, you're an amazing man, amazing person. I really appreciate you and I love you. And thank you for sharing with my audience on Digital Voices.
It was a pleasure to be here. And all fathers, I wish you a happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. Love you, Dad.
Love you.